Hi guys, my name is Tom and I'm the Tech Chap and welcome to my Nexus 6 in-depth review. The Nexus 6 is the latest smartphone featuring the Google Nexus branding, made by Motorola this time, as opposed to LG who made the Nexus 5. The Nexus 6 still offers a great, pure, stock Android experience, and is why the Nexus brand has been so popular for so many years. But a great Android experience is pretty much all the Nexus 6 has in common with its predecessors. When the Nexus 5 was released in 2013, it not only had a great Android stock experience, but also offered great value for money, costing just £339 or $399 for the 32GB model. So it was this combination of stock Android and great value which made the Nexus brand so popular. And unfortunately with this case, not only have we seen a scale up to 6-inch display, which is putting it firmly and quite literally out of reach of most people, but also a price increase. This now costs, as of March 2015, about £450 or $620. So it's bigger, it's more expensive, and so maybe it still doesn't have those unique selling points that we're used to with the Nexus brand. But don't discount it straight away. A lot of people will think it's too big, 6 inches is, phablet territory, it's not going to fit in your pocket. Well, it does fit in your pocket, but it is big, but for some of you, maybe it's a tablet replacement. For some of you, you'll want a big phone. You just enjoy a big screen, and I certainly have grown to like it. It makes apps and games and movies a lot more immersive. So don't discount it straight away, bear with me, and as we go deeper into the hands-on review, maybe I can convince you that the Nexus 6 is still worth a look at. So without further ado, let's have a look at the design. Okay, so due to the size of the Nexus 6, for most of the time you'll be wanting to use this two-handed. This is 83mm wide. In comparison, the Galaxy Note 4 is 78.6mm wide and the 6 Plus is 77.8mm wide. So this is a big phone and you can just about get away with one-handed use, perhaps if you use your little finger as a bit of a support, but you really can't reach much of the screen and you'll be sort of doing finger acrobatics just to reach different parts of the device. So undoubtedly this is a two-handed device, but of course it is. I mean, it's 6 inches. I hate the word phablet, but this really is what a phablet is, for good and for bad. So the design itself is pretty reminiscent of the Moto X, the back in particular, which I am a fan of. It's pretty fat, but it does taper in to the four corners. But it's also not quite even. I'm not sure how well this will come out on the camera, but it's actually a little bit fatter towards the camera end of the phone than the other end of the phone. So if we look at it straight on like that, it's a decent thickness there, it's quite fat. But if we look at the other end, it's not quite as fat. So I'm not quite sure what shape that is, but it doesn't really matter. In the hand and in holding it, you don't notice it because your palm doesn't really touch the back. So it doesn't matter how fat it is in the middle, and it sort of is, I guess, taking a design cue from the new iMacs, which are thin at the edges and get fatter in the middle, so you don't notice it too much. I'm also a big fan of the colour scheme. This is in midnight blue. You can also get cloud white, and it's sort of a nice futuristic looking, almost two-tone blue. You've got a slightly different blue at the top and on the edges than you do on the back. So I'm a big fan of it. This actually would be the colour I'd recommend it in. Obviously that's personal choice, but I think it looks really, really stylish. Now the reason I'm talking about the back so much and how much I like it is because the front, except for this big 6-inch screen, is a little bit bland. Although we do actually have stereo speakers, we've got a speaker at the top and a speaker at the bottom, which offers some nice sound, which we'll go into a little bit later. On the whole, it's nothing to write home about the front design in particular. Although I bet you I'm not the only person in the world who's pressed this bottom speaker as a home button, because both of these protrude a little bit. They are not actually flush with the device, and unfortunately they're a little bit cheap feeling, and they sort of I would prefer them if they were flush, but as a minor gripe, I'm glad that there is stereo speakers here, and in a lot of my reviews I do comment that it'd be nice to have stereo speakers like Sony and HTC do, so can't fault them there, but it'd be nice if these were flush, and I think too many people may mistake this for a home button, of which there is none. We have software buttons here. But of course, design, as always, is very subjective. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, of course. So in practical terms, we're looking at a pretty heavy 184-gram device. On the right edge, we see a power button and a volume rocker. On the left, we have absolutely nothing at all. We've just got a clean side. On the top, we have a 3.5 3mm jack for headphones and a nano SIM tray. And on the bottom we have a micro USB 2 port, which does feature the Qualcomm's quick charging technology, so you can charge this up pretty fast, assuming you're using the bundled charger that comes with the device. Interestingly, it is actually water resistant. Most recent Moto phones have been coated with a nano hydrophobic polymer which protects the insides from water damage, so even though there's no flaps or anything, the jacks and the ports are all exposed. It doesn't actually suffer from water ingress. Now, it doesn't have an official IP rating, so I personally wouldn't use it in a shower or a swimming pool, but I reckon it's done up to a bit of rain or the odd splash of water, so it's a nice little feature, but it doesn't go quite as far as the S5 from Samsung or Sony Z3 in terms of water and dust resistance. The Nexus 6 features a 5.96 inch, but we'll round that up to 6, 25 by 60 by 1440 Quad HD AMOLED display, and that offers a pixel density of 493 ppi, and this is all protected by Gorilla Glass 3. So really nice and sharp, really big. I mean, this is definitely phablet territory, but for some people that's exactly why you'd want to buy this phone. In terms of display quality, for me this is summed up in one word: warm. The whites particularly have a very strong yellow tint to them, and it's not make or break, it's not a deal breaker, but if you compare it next to other devices, then you will see that there is a definite warm hue to the color temperature of the phone. And although blacks are nice and dark and inky, reds are pretty oversaturated. It sort of reminded me a little bit of the Samsung AMOLED displays. So sort of uneven color reproduction. Whites are yellow, blacks are nice, but it's just not particularly good. And if you put this next to, say, the iPhone 6 Plus, which is probably a competitor of, then this really does stand out as having a bit of a poor display. So it's a shame, since the 6-inch screen here is one of the main selling points of the phone, that the quality of the display isn't quite up to par. And this goes a little bit further because the brightness is also a bit of a letdown, offering a pretty disappointing 270 nits at maximum brightness. Normally when I raise the brightness to the top that you can on the device, it sort of gets blown out on the camera which you're watching this from. But in this case, as you can see, it's still fairly it's all fairly viewable. It's not particularly blown out or anything, and that's because it just doesn't go that bright. 270 nits, as I say, and that's compared to nearly 470 on the Note 4. So you'll struggle to use this in bright sunlight, and even when I was trying to take pictures for the review, I struggled a little bit to see the screen well enough in order to frame the shot nicely. So it's a little bit annoying, and I haven't seen a display this dim for quite a while. And if you reduce the brightness all the way down, it does have a good low brightness, and that's useful perhaps if you're in bed at night or it's dark room or you're on a plane, you don't want it too bright. So it does go very, very dim, which is a good thing. But if you lower the brightness right down, but not quite to the bottom, you get a really odd sort of warm yellow tint to the whole thing. There's almost a red tint. I don't think it's coming across particularly well on the camera, but you have to see it to believe it. But it's not particularly nice to look at, and is really subpar, unfortunately, compared to the rest of what is otherwise a very premium, very nice device. But of course, it's not all about contrast levels and color reproduction. It's big, it's sharp thanks to that Quad HD display, and it's an absolute pleasure to watch HD content, YouTube videos, Netflix, play games on, and that's sort of what most people would want it for. Just a big, good viewing experience. So it'd be nicer if it was a little bit more accurate. It'd be nicer if the colors were a bit better. But at the end of the day, this is still a 6-inch phone, and it's probably the best ones you're going to get of that size. Ah, Mr. Clooney. Very nice. Very nice shoes. So the white's a little off, the screen's a little bit dim, but you know what? It's still awesome. I still like it. You get used to it, and only when you compare it side by side with another device will you really notice that. So for most people, it'll be just fine. And that 6-inch screen is, well, it's 6 inches. It's huge. It's pretty awesome. And that's going to be the selling point for most people. So in terms of the operating system, right now for this review we're running Android 5.1. It comes shipped with Android 5 Lollipop, but being a Nexus device, it enjoys the latest updates before any other Android phone. And that is really one of the best features of the Nexus devices. You get updates sooner. And for those who want to have the purest and latest Android experience, then a Nexus device is by far the best option. So the Nexus 6 offers a pure Android experience, and for many that's the main reason to buy one, ignoring the screen, ignoring everything else. And I'm a big fan of the material design that was introduced in Lollipop. It's colourful, it's bright, it's pretty intuitive, and it's fast. So I'm sure you've probably used an Android phone before, so you know how it all works and how it all looks. But I like it, and it ensures, and the latest updates always ensure that you've got the best performance possible for the device. Android 5 was a huge update for the platform, and because this is a Nexus device and I get the updates before most other smartphones, I get to show you a little bit about 5.1. Now, 5.1 only brings a handful of improvements. Some are more significant than others. For example, now we get a drop-down menu for the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings, which, yay, maybe saves a second or something. Not particularly interesting. But more importantly, two big upgrades. One, this is a quad-core device, so 4 cores, and the 5.1 update means that now all 4 cores are running all the time. Previously, 2 of the cores were shut down when it was idle or if the screen was off. So hopefully that will improve performance a little bit. We'll have to look at that a bit closer. And also I assume it doesn't affect battery life, because I guess they wouldn't probably update it to do that if it did halve the battery performance, for example. So in addition to all 4 cores running all the time, we have something called HD voice calling. This is very similar technology to the Apple Volt or VoLTE, voice over LTE. Unfortunately, I can't demo this to you just yet. My carrier in the UK doesn't support it just yet, but it's supposed to increase the call quality, essentially high definition call quality, whatever that really means. But any improvement is always welcome. So there are a fair few neat features of Android 5 and 5.1, including on Moto devices and Nexus devices, the fact that you can wake it up saying OK Google, even from the off screen, which is quite unique to the, as I say, Nexus and Moto devices. It doesn't even have to be charging, it can just be off, well, phone on but screen off, and you can say OK Google and it will wake up. I haven't got that enabled just at the moment because I was having a little trouble recording my voice, but trust me, it works, and it's a pretty neat feature. And maybe it mitigates a little bit the fact that you can't actually tap to wake the device. Unfortunately, although Android 5 does natively support tap to wake or double tap, as in the case of LG phones and a few other manufacturers, there's just no option on this Nexus device, so you've got to go back to the power button. So you could say OK Google and wake it up that way, but you know, coming from a few different phones, I missed that a little bit. It's a minor issue, but any excuse to avoid having to pick up this big beast and press that home button would be nice. But overall, I'm a big fan of Android Lollipop. The multitasking menu is nice and clear and responsive, although I would like a clear all button. It's a little bit annoying that there isn't anything there. You have to swipe away each individual one. But it's smooth, it's simple, and even the settings menu is a pleasure to use. It's not overly complicated, and it's all color-coded and nicely laid out. So combined with the fast internal processor and 3 gigs of RAM, the stock Android experience is, as always, really, really nice, and it makes you wish that other manufacturers would just sort of leave Android alone and stop putting their own skins on it and bloatware and bits and pieces, and just leave it as Google intended. And that really is still one of the biggest selling points for the Nexus 6. Although the Nexus 6 doesn't actually offer expandable memory, there's no micro SD slot anywhere, it doesn't really matter that much, because the base option, the cheapest option, is still gives you 32 gigabytes of internal memory, which, if I just check for you now, should offer us a solid, where is it? 25, yeah, basically 26 gigs free, because it's never quite as much as advertised. That's a conversation for another time. But for 32 gigabytes is the base model. It's pretty cool. You still get 26 to play with. So that's going to be plenty for most people. Yeah, I would like a micro SD port. I've got, to transfer files and bits and pieces. But in terms of storage space, it's pretty good to be offering 32 as the base option, and something I wish Apple would do. So in addition to good storage options, the performance is exceptional on this device, thanks to the really snappy Qualcomm Snapdragon 805 clocked at 2.7 GHz alongside 3 gigs of RAM. That's basically the same as the Note 4 in terms of spec. It's no longer quite cutting edge next to the new Snapdragon 810 that you can find in the latest 2015 phones like the LG G Flex 2 and HTC One M9, or the new Samsung Exynos processors inside the Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge. But to be fair, this is a 2014 phone, and it still scores an incredible 52,721 on the Antutu benchmark. I ran this earlier, and to save time, I will just show you the screenshot of it. And that is an exceptional score, and actually beats the Note 4 and the iPhone 6 Plus, which both scored about 48,000 and 47,000 respectively. Even though it's pushing a QHD display, that's 1440p, that's a hell of a lot of pixels, we're still getting a great score on the Antutu benchmark. And obviously, synthetic benchmarks don't give you the whole picture of performance, you know, general user experience, but it's a good indicator of just how powerful the specs are inside. So we can talk about benchmarks all day long, but the crux of it basically for most people will be just how it handles apps and games. So let's just run a couple of intensive apps and you'll see that it performs very, very well. And it also gives us a chance to test out these stereo speakers, which are pretty good for their size. So let's jump into Modern Combat here, Modern Combat 5, if I can skip ahead. And it's sort of gaming like this that this 6-inch screen really does come into its own and makes you appreciate that why you're giving up portability a little bit in order to have such a big screen right in front of you for your games. So hopefully this won't take too long to load. If I turn the volume up a little bit, we can hear the stereo speakers. And if you hold a finger over one or each of them, then you can hear just how well the stereo works. And that's a really big plus for the Nexus. Too many phones, Samsung until recently with the S6, have always relegated their speakers to the back, and even the iPhone has it on the bottom. So it's nice to see them up front and facing you. So unless you're going to be doing that, you're not really going to be obscuring them. So I'm pretty pleased about that. So this is a really good looking game. I actually really enjoyed playing it. I'm pretty rubbish at it. But you can see how everything works. Nice and fast, nice and smoothly. Come on, there we go. Oh, no one dies at that bit. Okay, but you can see it runs really well, sounds good. So this is a great device for content consumption, essentially playing games. But let's jump in very quickly to Asphalt 8, another popular game. One I like to show you because it's free. No other reason, but it does look good and it's pretty fun as well. Awesome, so let's jump right in. And as usual, my driving, just like my shooting skills, are pretty rubbish. That's not too bad, good start. Anyway, awesome, so it sounds good. Let's punch that right up to the top. Really loud. Really crisp screen, really nice frame rate. Absolute joy to play games and use your apps on. So combining that super fast 805 processor, which stays nice and cool, it never gets hot to the touch or anything, with the stock Android experience means you get a blisteringly fast phone, and is definitely a key feature of the device and something that a lot of people would want to buy it for. So let's move on to the camera. On the back we've got a 13 megapixel optical image stabilized f2.0 camera, which has a neat little ring dual LED flash to it. If I turn on the torch, which you can from the notifications menu here now, you can see that that's pretty bright and also pretty cool having a dual flash like that. Makes it look quite nice. And although in practice I found that just the HDR mode, unless you're in really dark situations, is a little bit better than using the flash, it still looks quite neat. And on the front we have a 2.1 megapixel camera, which is decent, it's pretty good, but it's not really going to win any awards and does suffer a little bit from noise. In terms of video, it can shoot up to 4K at 30 frames per second, or as most people will, up to 1080p 60 FPS. So a very capable camera right here. The specs are good, it all sounds good on paper, but obviously as with all cameras and most components, it's best just to try them, and the proof as always is in the pudding. So let's take a look at a few pictures I've taken, and overall I'd say the camera is pretty good. Let's start with this picture of some berries on the bush. Detail is good in well lit environments, although if you zoom in you do lose detail a little bit. If we jump to the grass picture here, you can see it's fairly crisp, fairly detailed, but as soon as you zoom in, it retains a decent amount of detail, but it becomes a little bit fuzzier. You can see a little bit of processing going on there. So it's pretty good. It's not great. I would say it doesn't stand up to the likes of the iPhone 6 Plus or the Note 4, but it's sort of, you know, 7 out of 10. It's pretty good. It'll do. But with HDR Plus mode enabled, which is I'd recommend you do use and is defaultly enabled in the Google Camera app, it does improve the quality of the pictures. For example, if we go to this cloud picture, you can see that it takes good detailed pictures even in harsh light. Even though this is a bright sunny day, you can still make out a good amount of detail in the clouds, and nothing is particularly blown out. So HDR is enabled by default. It takes better, more evenly contrasted pictures. So these are all taken with that enabled. Although, to be fair, it does take a few seconds to take and to process. It's not live HDR as we've seen on some other devices, but it works pretty well. And I tried to compare it to the Flash and which one I prefer. And if you look at these three little piggies pictures, the first one you can see here is with the Flash, which sort of has blown out the face of the pig a little bit on the right and made the background quite dark, compared to a non-Flash but HDR Plus enabled picture, which looks a lot more evenly lit, a lot better, and a lot nicer. So unless it's really, really dark, I'd actually recommend staying away from the Flash if you can, and sticking with the HDR Plus mode, which does brighten dark images up anyway. Now in terms of video, as I say, it can shoot up to 4K 30 FPS or 1080p 60. If I show you this little picture, the video of me walking down my local high street, you can see that the optical image stabilization doesn't actually do that much to reduce the impact of the camera movement from just walking, and it also doesn't focus that well on certain subjects as I'd like. This focusing issue can also be seen in this video where I'm walking through a field. In both videos, though, the colours are pretty good. It offers a good sound quality. The colours are quite natural. It's not particularly bright, although that could be an issue with the screen, so I'll be overlaying these videos and images to you, so you're not seeing them on the phone, so you can see them for their actual legitimate quality and with it not having any issues with the screen affecting the quality of the camera. So in both videos, colours are good, as I say, good sound quality, but there are a few other interesting features of the Google Camera app, from panoramas to lens blur and photospheres. So I've got a few examples of them for you. Let's start with the photosphere. This basically, you have to sort of look like a bit of an idiot, stand still and take pictures all around you, and it comes out fairly well. Although taking this off the phone onto your desktop or onto your computer doesn't really give you this effect at all. It's a bit of a weird picture. But on the phone you get almost like a Google Street View 360, or it can be as big or as small as you want, image. And although it doesn't quite work 100%, as you can see on the ground there, it's pretty cool. I'm not sure I'd actually really ever use it beyond doing this for demonstration purposes, but it's pretty interesting, and as you can see, the contrast is pretty good throughout. Colors are natural, but perhaps a bit of a gimmick. Maybe it's up to you to decide that. Going beyond that, though, we've got a panorama, which everyone knows how panoramas work, but for some reason it didn't actually work that well for me. I did stand still, but you can see there's a definite dip in the picture there. It's actually a flat field, but for some reason it's decided to make it weirdly shaped, but I'm not sure why that is, but you know how a panorama works, so perhaps it was just this one example. And finally, my actual favourite feature is the lens blur effect, and you can see a good example of this in this cat picture. This is my cat, the Tech Chap cat, and you simply focus on the subject you want to take a picture of, and you want the most detail, and then you just move the camera up a little bit like that, just once, and it adds this sort of cool depth of field effect. So you get the subject in nice focus, and everything else is blurred out, so it emphasizes the subject. And I quite like that. But the problem is, these are all neat features, but they're all features of the Google Camera app, and any Android phone can download this from the store. I can show you right now if I go to the Play Store and type in Google Camera. There we are. anyone can download this, and then you can get those features like the photosphere, panorama, the lens blur. So none of this is unique to the Nexus, and you can actually even get the lens. Sorry, you can even get the photosphere from Google on the App Store on your iPhone. So obviously, it's not just about the features; it's the features combined with the quality of the camera. But it takes away a little bit the sort of uniqueness of the Nexus. You know, anyone can get those features just by downloading the app. And finally, for the front-facing camera, as I say, it's 2.1 megapixels. I'm not a big fan of selfies, but I'll do it anyway for you just to demonstrate the quality of them. They're not too bad. As you can see, the colors are fairly natural in this picture, although this is actually really well lit. But if we just look at the top towards the sky, you can see it's pretty noisy. And so in low light pictures, this noise is obviously emphasized, and so it's not particularly good. It does the job, and again, that's sort of how I'm describing both these cameras, really. You know, 7 out of 10, does the job, not too bad. It's not going to win any awards, and it does fall down a little bit compared to the Note 4 and the iPhone 6 Plus, but it's alright, and importantly, it's a lot better than its predecessor, the Nexus 5, which was very average, and the camera was one of the biggest issues with it. So the camera is definitely better than its very average predecessor, the Nexus 5, and holds its own against the majority of current smartphones, although it does fall down a bit if we compare it to the Note 4 or the iPhone 6 Plus, which are its closest rivals. Just in terms of image quality and noise levels, the Nexus just doesn't quite stand up there with them. But it's perfectly good, perfectly reasonable. It will get the job done, and I can't complain. So overall, I would describe it as a pretty good camera. Not the best, but not the worst. So let's talk about battery life. Inside we've got a large 3220 milliamp battery, non-removable of course. Google advertised over 24 hours of use, although, and actually I'd agree, surprisingly. Most times I would say that the manufacturer's specs and stats don't quite add up to real-world use, but I would say a decent solid 24 hours, just over a day. I ran the Geekbench battery test, and if I show you the results here, again I took a screenshot to save time. It did pretty well. It lasted 5 hours and 10 minutes, producing a score of 3100. Now, that may not mean a lot to you, but if I tell you that the Note 4 lasted 5 hours and 2 minutes, and the iPhone 6 lasted 5 hours and 26 minutes, you can see that this really is up there with those sort of devices. It doesn't quite get to the 6 hours that the Sony Xperia Z3 does. So although you can't remove the battery and hot swap it like you can on the S5 or the Note 4, it still offers a above average battery life, and gives the Note 4 and the iPhone 6 Plus a good run for its money in that regard. So it will last you a full day. I would always recommend charging these at night, but considering it's a Quad HD display and a screen of this size, and the screen is one of the biggest battery drainers, it still maintains a very admirable battery life despite that. So as well as having a pretty good battery life anyway, there's a couple of extra little neat features of the Nexus 6. Firstly, this charger port at the bottom features the Qualcomm quick charge technology, which means you can actually charge the phone. 15 minutes of charge from 0% will give you about 6 hours of battery life. Now that's the quoted charging speed, but in reality I've got something not too far off it, to be fair. I had it at 0%, I charged it for 20 minutes, and I had about 5 hours of battery life. So that's still very, very good and a lot faster than normal charging speeds. And finally, in addition, we also have QI charging, or was it Qi or Key, I think they call it, off the bat built in. So you can just buy a separate dock, a separate plate for it, and you can pop it on the charging panel, and you'll get wireless charging. So great battery life anyway, and quick charging and wireless charging really makes the battery life one of the best features of the Nexus 6. So I'm really impressed with that. So in terms of call quality, I have reviewed a lot of phones, and I'd rate the call quality here as pretty average. It's nothing bad, but it's also nothing to write home about particularly. There's a small amount of static present. It's improved by using the speakerphone or plugging in headphones, but I was able to hold a conversation in a fairly noisy environment well, and the person could hear me and I could hear them. So not too bad. Again, it's pretty decent. The latest Android 5.1 release, as I say, does feature HD voice calling, so that's pretty useful. And although I can't demo this for you, it should hopefully improve the call quality a little bit in the future. So again, serviceable, functional, decent, pretty good. 7 out of 10. You know, these are all adjectives that have summed up the camera and can also sum up the call quality. I do like this phone. I like the design of it, I like the battery life of it, I like the performance of it, but it is let down a little bit by the screen quality, even though it is nice and big and sharp, which I really like. And it's let down a little bit, as I say, by the camera image quality and the call quality. So it's not quite perfect, but it's pretty interesting, to be fair. It's an interesting phone. It's big, it's fast, it's powerful, and it's definitely something worth taking a look at. And although I'll talk about this more in the conclusion, don't discount the fact that it's 6 inches and therefore must be far too big for you, because as you can see in my hand, it does technically fit in one hand. You can see my thumb doesn't reach that far, but with two-handed use, it's pretty good. Thanks to the nice slim bezel, it's not actually as unwieldy, in my opinion, as even the iPhone 6 Plus, despite the fact that this is half an inch bigger. For me, the slipperiness of the iPhone 6 Plus and just the, I guess, the overall ergonomics of it meant it was even harder than this to hold for me, although it's obviously a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter, and etc. This is heavier, fatter, taller. It's just a bit more comfortable to hold. So you'll get used to it. My initial reaction, as I say, was bloody hell, that's huge. But give it a chance. Go into a store, hold it. And although, as I say, the call quality and the camera aren't exceptional, and the display quality is also a bit lackluster, it's still an awesome phone with an awesome screen. So it's definitely worth checking out. But let's talk a little bit more about this in the conclusion. So overall, I actually really like this phone. It's fair to say that when I first opened it, first used it, I was a bit put off by the size. It is pretty damn big and a lot bigger than anything else I've been looking at recently. Although thanks to its design, it doesn't feel that big. It fits comfortably in the hand, although you will need to use it two-handed. But some people will initially think, no, far too big, no way, it looks stupid. And that may be true for you. But for others, this screen size will be exactly why you buy it. A sharp, big screen is what you want in a phone. Maybe as a tablet replacement, maybe you just want a big screen on your phone. And as we discussed, there's a lot more to it than just the screen. Fast processor, pretty good speakers, decent battery life, decent camera. And although the screen is Quad HD, so it's nice and sharp, really good pixel per inch density, it's a shame that we are let down a little bit by the color reproduction, by the brightness. It is quite dim, and I did struggle a little bit in the camera review, in the camera part of the test, getting those shots outside on a sunny day because it is just too dark. For me though, losing the portability, losing the ease of use, having to use it two-handed, and you definitely do feel it in your pocket, sort of outweighs a little bit the benefits of a bigger screen. And to be fair, I have a tablet, and maybe if I didn't have a tablet and I didn't have a smartphone and I wasn't sure whether to get both or one, then this would be a really interesting proposition. You know, I probably wouldn't buy a tablet if I had this, so that's probably where a lot of the market for it will be. But undoubtedly, it's a really good phone. It's not the best. Its competitors beat it a little bit in battery life, a little bit in the camera quality, but overall, you can't get a better Android experience. It's so smooth, it's so fast, and blisteringly fast in all the apps thanks to the 805 processor. So the selling points are the screen size and the stock Android experience, and that's what we've come to expect from the Nexus brand, although it's a shame we've lost the really excellent value for money that we were used to on the previous Nexus 4 and Nexus 5 devices. So this is a little bit more expensive. It's about £100, $150 more than the Nexus 5 was at launch for the same size 32GB model, but it's still actually cheaper than the iPhone 6 Plus. It's about 150 quid cheaper than the iPhone 6 Plus. So with that all said and done, I can still highly recommend this phone. It's not going to be for most people, it is going to be too big for most people, but for those who want a big screen phone, or they do want the stock Android experience, this really is the one to get. Its closest competitor is probably the Note 4, which does beat it a little bit in terms of perhaps overall functionality, and also the camera is a little bit better. But this, for many, because it's pure Android, because it's stock Android, will be exactly why you buy it. And for that, and that's a great reason to. So I hope you found this review helpful. Thank you very much for watching, and if you do enjoy my reviews and my content, please do subscribe. It means I can continue buying and bringing you these expensive pieces of kit. So cheers for watching, guys, and hopefully see you again.